So did you see the picture I tweeted of the bald eagle dropped a dead fish on Lake of the Isles Parkway?
Yes.
So I was trying to think why that seemed familiar. Why did that? I had a little bit of deja vu, and so a bald eagle dropping a dead fish on Lake of the Isles Parkway, and then it dawned on me, Mayor Fry and his appointment of Tom Hoke to be board chair of MPHA. It was like, that's the perfect metaphor for the return of Tom Hoke, is a bald eagle dropping a dead fish on Lake of the Isles Parkway.
We're rolling. We're rolling.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
Please type to us in the chat just to confirm that this is working.
Taylor says that she's on her phone and there's no chat.
Oh, well, this may not work on your phone. Run to a laptop if you can. If anyone is on a laptop, and confirm this for us that it works.
She's going to try her iPad.
I can introduce the show. If people are watching, we don't want them to be bored out of their minds watching us fix technical issues. So this is the Wedge Live podcast, and I'm your host, John Edwards. Joining me today is Jason Garcia for a special Ask Us Anything episode. We'll also get to some topics, but we want to mix in some call-ins, like a real radio show, a real live radio show would do. How are you, Jason?
I'm doing all right. How are you today, John? Have you been enjoying the fine weather?
Yeah, we finally got past some of the terrible, cold, rainy days. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. Been taking walks around Cedar Lake.
Oh.
Which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
It's like you've gone deep into the woods. There's hardly anything out there. One thing that's irritating is that I think you're supposed to have access to walk around the entire lake, but there are some like multi-million-dollar mansions that have encroached on park board right of way, so you can't technically walk around the lake all the way.
Well, you can walk. Well, I guess where the channel comes in is the only area that you really can't walk through. You can walk on those people's lawns, and they might complain, but technically, since that is park board right of way, they have no standing to complain about you walking as long as you're like near the lake.
Yeah, but to be clear, on the south side of the channel, there are lots of fences, I think, built right up to...
Oh, it's been a while since I've been over there.
It didn't look accessible to me. Not that we should spend a whole lot of time talking about Cedar Lake. That's what I've been doing. We can see the light coming into your apartment, Jason. It's a sign that the seasons are changing.
That's true.
Let's get on to a first topic as we wait for the possibility of callers. Somebody left hamsters on the street with a sign that said free hamsters at 25th and Emerson. Did you see my tweet just now? This is kind of breaking news.
I did not.
Yeah, that seems inappropriate. Do we have an animal cruelty issue here?
Yeah, I think that would definitely qualify as some sort of animal cruelty, especially, given the prevalence of predators in our neighborhood that might want to turn the hamsters into a delicious snack.
Are we talking about raccoons? Is that something a raccoon would do?
That's definitely something a raccoon would do. Anybody whose cats may be out in the yard, may be out free from their home. Birds of prey. Taylor is also reporting that there is no chat on the iPad either.
Well, that sucks. Let me Google something real quick to see if I can figure out what I'm doing wrong. We should have tested this ahead of time, Jason.
Yeah, that's why I logged in relatively early. I was assuming that you would be here and we could do some testing, but...
Oh, Conrad is calling. We see you.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, caller. Give your name and neighborhood and your question.
My name is Conrad. I live in downtown, and I guess just from the participant point of view, it looked like the chat was kind of locked down, but then Samantha started chatting something. So I guess people can post in the chat. I don't know. But my question that I am desperate to know Jason's opinion on is who do you think will in 2023, because this is only 2 years is this council term. I guess I don't want to ask a very specific question, but I want to know some specific answers, as it were. So what are your thoughts on the next council race? Because it's only a council race. Mayor is special. They get 4 years because the city boundaries haven't changed.
Right. Yeah, I think this is going to be a really interesting set of council elections. I think one of my concerns is that a lot of the more conservative candidates that were elected this past time around are just going to kind of be reelected because people in their wards are going to say, well, they need a full term to be able to really execute on anything. Meanwhile, the more progressive members of the council are going to be held to a different standard and have a lot more attacks saying they didn't accomplish anything in their 2-year stint. I think that's sort of how, particularly, the corporate media here tends to portray things. When you run on a platform of change with only a 2-year term, it's very difficult to enact any sort of change. I'm hoping that the results of the Minnesota Department of Human Rights report on MPD will help spur some change in the city, but I'm not holding my breath on that, given how Mayor Fry has sort of reacted to the findings so far. But I do think that, it's going to be very important for all of us on the progressive side to continue to make connections, continue to work together, and try to find ways to support our progressive council people. Here in Ward 10, we're very fortunate to have Aisha Chugtai as our representative. I think she's been doing an amazing job. She's been really kind of thrown into the proverbial fire here, with police killings and MPD malfeasance reportings and things like that, all within the first couple months of her term. And I would say the same to, people in Ward 9 with Jason Chavez and Ward 2 with Robin Wansley-Warloba. I think Robin has done a tremendous job of really pushing back against the establishment, and unfortunately I think that will make her a target in the future. But, with a 2-year term, to Conrad's point, it's, this very quick, rapid, try to get some things accomplished and try to get back out on the campaign trail. And we've seen, things from Aisha in regards to trying to get rent stabilization on the ballot this year. Unfortunately, that was blocked by the less progressive members of the council. But I think, if the newly elected council members can keep pushing for their goals and things like that, there will be, I think, at least some positive momentum to help blunt their challengers that are going to be coming up, and coming up with, probably more money to challenge them than they did last time around.
I will say that I don't know what's going to happen in 2023. It is often the case that the thing you think the election's going to be about is not what it's about, because something big happens. Nobody thought that everyone thought 21 would be about fourplexes, and it turned out nobody cared when we legalized fourplexes. Didn't ruin anybody's neighborhood. So it's possible that 23 will also be about crime. It's a very hot topic nationally. It's hard to see that trend shifting in the near term. And 2020, like, it's getting to the point where if you're running in 2023 for city council or mayor, like, you have already started thinking about it. You've already started asking people, will you help me run? And you will probably, people will start announcing like this fall. We're already on it. It feels like the election just ended, but we're already into that period.
I would like to point out that nobody is running for mayor in 2023. It's only council people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Phyllis Khan has confused me about the way our elections work. And it should be pointed out, 2023 will also be a 2-year term, and we'll have another election for both city council and mayor in 2025.
Yes.
There's also the factor of... So the mayor has a council who has basically decided we're going to give this mayor what he wants. So the mayor has free reign. He's a strong mayor. He has always been strong mayor of police, but now he's a strong mayor of everything.
Right.
So I wonder if crime stays at this level or goes a little higher. Do we punish Jacob Frey for that? Is that only something we aim at the left? Because across the country, no matter whether you've got progressive prosecutors or conservative prosecutors, you were basically seeing, and you've got a lot of cities that have enacted some changes, transformations of the way they do public safety. And it doesn't seem the case that stuff has led to increased crime. So, I don't know. Is it a one-way street? Do we only punish the left for their public safety maneuvers? And if it's like, as long as Jacob Frey says what Southwest Minneapolis needs him to hear, I shouldn't single out Southwest Minneapolis because he had support in other parts of the city, right?
Yes. I mean, he had overwhelming white support in Minneapolis. But yeah, to your point, I think that these conversations are skewed to where they only go one way. They only punch to the left. There isn't really any analysis beyond, well, somebody said that we didn't need more police, therefore any sort of crime must be their fault, without any discussion about the efficacy of police as a solution to crime or a preventative of crime. And I think that one of the problems that comes along with that is it allows outside organizations to really dominate the messaging by, using anything from a progressive standpoint as being the causality of crime rather than being a response to crime. And that isn't even including the fact that over the past few years, under Jacob Frey's watchful eye, MPD has been using online channels to attack elected officials and organizations like the NAACP via fake social media accounts and things like that.
Yeah, before we get into that Department of Human Rights investigation and report, I would like to say that Minneapolis has never had any other policy post-George Floyd that hasn't been hire lots more cops to replace all of the ones who quit. That has been the policy. And so I feel like we made a mistake in 21 thinking that, well, the city council got rid of the cops and that caused crime to go up. The only policy the city has had post-George Floyd in terms of budget decisions has been, we got to hire more cops. They all quit. What are we going to do? And so that leaves us in a bad position in terms of, you've got the charter provision that says you must hire this many cops without regard to how well you're doing training them, if you have the capability of training them. Even the city attorney has said, in arguing against the Don Samuels lawsuit, we don't have the capacity to train cops this fast, and it should be left to our discretion as a city as to how fast we do this. So let's talk about the the Department of Human Rights report on their investigation of MPD. We've got racist outcomes in traffic stops, which I think we already knew. We've got like just casual racism and sexism within MPD, like comments at a training, like stereotypical depictions of black people at a training.
Right.
We've got training just generally found lacking. One thing that I don't think was in the report that seemed like a big deal to me at the time when it came out was the fact that our interim chief put someone who had been fired for misconduct in charge of the training. So not only had this person been rehired, they had been put in charge of training for the entire department. I think they had covered up. I don't want to misstate what the misconduct was, but I'll leave it at that. It had been serious enough that MPD had fired this person. And so that seemed like a big deal to me. We got, as Jason referred to, social media spying, and not in like an intelligence gathering way, just like it seems like a politically motivated kind of way. Like we'll target black groups, elected officials, pretending to be black people on social media. Like the way it read, it seemed almost like a Russian social media trolling operation. Like we'll have a bunch of cops online pretending to be black people who are against
the NAACP or
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, one of the really important things that stood out to me after reading the report is that, the Department of Human Rights finds that there is probable cause to believe that a pattern or practice of discrimination is taking place. And when Mayor Fry had his press conference following the release, he, made a point to say, like, well, I can't talk to specific instances.
I mean, how do you respond to that? If you're saying there was change, there was people trying to do something about it, saying that language is not okay, but then this report is saying sergeants, leaders were not doing anything about it. And I guess, and second part of that question, will there be discipline now after this report?
Yeah. The report itself covers 10 years, potentially even beyond that. And so, again, I can't comment on each individual case, not because we're hiding anything, but because I don't know. And I want to give you accurate information. This covers a very wide swath of time and a very large number of incidents that we're going to have to dig into.
When really what this report is saying is that these are things that are prevalent and they're ongoing and they are just a part of the culture. It's not even so much to pick at individual threads, it's to look at the whole tapestry. And, they certainly give several very disturbing and frustrating examples of just terrible civil rights abuses and policing based on race. So, one of the things that they find is that this pattern of racist, discriminatory policing has caused an erosion of faith in the city and MPD. And, they talk about how there needs to be more honest and open communication from the city and MPD to the community. And then you have somebody like Jacob Fry come out and just use what I would describe as a very lawyerly tactic to try to reduce it to like these individual instances that he can't speak to, rather than addressing the entire culture and the entire happenings that are represented by this report, which is just a continuation of that process.
We've moved from the bad apples excuse to, I think Fry said something to the effect of, well, there's so many of them over such a long period of time.
Right.
You're not being specific enough for me to address the things you're saying. There's just too much to address. Please get more specific, which was odd. I'm a little concerned that it wasn't. So we keep getting the same information packaged into new reports. We got the after action report. We've got this Department of Human Rights report. We have the federal DOJ report coming. It's like things we basically knew. There's some shocking details. Like I can't summon the level of outrage. Like the racism that is steeped throughout this department. It doesn't shock me, right? It should. This is a very bad thing.
No, I think you're right. I think that it is another outrage in a long line of outrages, and at this point it is very difficult. We're a couple weeks out from the release, and we're it's hard to summon that anger at the drop of a hat when this is just sort of the water that we're swimming in, so to speak.
Yeah, it's like they didn't find another body, and therefore I am unable to summon the appropriate level of outrage. Oh, just casual everyday racism happening all the time.
Right.
At least nobody died.
Right, and it's all things that we've known about. People have been talking about this. When people at a police precinct put up a Christmas tree that they considered to be all in good fun, that was sort of mocking stereotypes of black people in the neighborhood. And, that was like, oh, that's just like a one-time thing. It's just these officers. But no, it's actually all of the department allows this to go on and on and on.
Turns out that stereotypical racist depictions of black people is happening at the training,
right,
as detailed in the State Department of Human Rights report on MPD.
Right, and they also noted that when they cut the training last fall, in September of 2021, that among the things that were removed were almost all of their cultural awareness components on how to have more positive interactions with non-white community members.
Yeah, the whole implicit bias thing, which kind of gets back to the idea, and I don't know if this is the cause, but the fact that you try to hire cops at an unprecedentedly fast rate, and so you cut corners. And why should we have any confidence that the cops you're bringing in are better or worse than the ones who have quit in large numbers? It's a question that has never been answered that I know of. Is are the I'm not going to say the phrase good cops, Jason. I know you'll chastise me. But are we losing the extremely bad cops? Are we losing maybe some cops who would have been amenable to some reforms, but are like done with the department? Are we losing cops who are frustrated with how bad MPD is? Like, to what degree is that who is quitting?
Right.
We have a call in from Melody. Melody, please give your name and where you're calling from.
Hello, I'm Melody, and I'm calling from East Harriet. Hi, Ella.
What is your comment and or question?
Well, my question was, what questions have already been asked?
So Conrad asked a very broad question about the 2023 election to Jason. It was directed at Jason, so you are obligated to direct your question to me.
That's not true.
I'm the host.
That
wow,
is
I
true.
feel really put on the spot here to ask a question.
Oh, you called in without a question?
I just wanted to talk to you guys.
Can you read the question? There was somebody who asked about bottled water.
I hate bottled water. What's your?
It's in the chat.
Oh,
read that question as if it was yours, because I liked that question.
Okay, in the chat.
It's 5:46 p.m.
Oh, so I wasn't here at 5:46, so I'm only seeing the stuff that started at 6:59.
I will copy and paste it into the chat, and
then I do have a question for you.
This feels very like this moment will be manufactured, because this isn't Melody's real question, but she's going to ask it as though it's her question.
Okay. Hi, my name's Melody. I'm calling from East Harriet, and I have a question for you, John.
Go ahead.
How much does it cost to get Wedge Live bottled water sourced from Lake Chipotle shipped to Wyoming?
So we have a warehouse full of our Wedge Live branded bottled water sourced from Lake Chipotle. And so we will only be accepting Wedge coins. It's a new cryptocurrency. And so it will all be dependent on the level of speculation, how many like Bitcoin farming supercomputers people are using. It's blockchain is basically the answer to that one. Thank you, Melody, for your question. Do you have any other comments?
Could I, well, just as a follow-up comment, maybe to your answer, I was really hoping you were going to go more with like the Wedge bucks. Like, you know, you go to certain neighborhoods, like if you travel around and they'll be like, we have our own dollars for our own neighborhood to use. I was hoping that it was going to be that and not. Jason, do you know what I'm talking about? You just looked, you were just like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
I have never heard of this.
Really?
Yeah, you should watch more CBS Sunday Morning. I feel like they did a segment on some small town that was like printing these wooden tokens to like revitalize the economy. I don't understand how that revitalizes an economy. I guess by getting people to spend money for something that is not worth anything and hoping it's like gift certificates. When people sell gift certificates, hoping it will just sit in a drawer and never get spent. That's a money-making ploy, I think.
I think it's more like you trade. So let's say I trade in $20 worth of Wedge tokens, Wedge Live tokens. I can only spend them in the Wedge neighborhood. It like forces me to like, so then I'm like, oh, I'm going to get a coffee at Misfit. I'm not going to go to the 5 Watt in Kingfield, right? So it kind of just, it wasn't my idea.
In addition to the sitting in a drawer, never spent dynamic.
Okay, well, thanks for
cynical take.
answering my question. Can I ask another question?
Yeah, you can hang out as long. Nobody else is calling. Like, shame on the people who are not calling in. This is a Ask Us Anything episode. So, Melody, you can stay as long as you like until we get another call.
Great. So my question is what your thoughts, and both of you can answer this, what your thoughts are on the upcoming police chief search. And the reason I ask this is I was just at a listening session last night at MLK Junior Park, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Park last night, remix. And I got to like hear what the community wanted to see in a police chief, and just curious if you all have any thoughts on that and what your opinions are. If you were at the listening session, what would you say?
So I'll take this one. I don't have high hopes because I think we put a lot of faith into our previous chief, and that was ridiculous and childish and very stupid. And he, by all accounts, was a very nice person, but that was not enough. So one very basic thing I'm hoping for is that it's not someone from within MPD. Because I've never worked in I never worked for like a government and a large entity, but it seems like in a corrupt and racist organization like that, everyone knows everyone else's dirty laundry. It's like, I know the things you've been up to. I've been covering for you forever. You've been covering for me. And if you come in as somebody who's been there for 3 decades and decide, well, I'm going to start holding people accountable, we've had enough of this, you can't, because they know your dirt. You can't call them on their dirt. So bring somebody in from outside, please. The whole, it's not working. We need somebody from the outside, if anyone is willing to take the job.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of what you said. I think we as a community have to be careful about pinning our hopes of any sort of positive change in MPD coming from one person. That's not how culture gets changed. For somebody who talked about culture eating policy for breakfast for so long, Mayor Fry has really shown no understanding of how to actually change an organizational culture, how to lead an organizational culture. So I think that, if you think about it from the concept of a one-time hire, it's really not going to make a lot of difference in the rank and file. But hopefully they can find somebody who is willing to take on the challenge of trying to change that culture, with the understanding that it's also going to require a lot of change of the makeup of the department as it stands.
And a reminder to the 14 people, or maybe it's 12 people, I don't know if we subtract ourselves, who are watching us live. Press that call-in button at the bottom if you have a question or a comment, or if you would just like to talk to us. We're very lonely.
You can use the chat function too.
Yeah, use the chat function.
I think it's rude that this is my cat right now. That like people are like benefiting from your labor and like getting free entertainment and not adding anything to that. You know, it's like engaged media. Let's engage, folks.
Yeah, we're here for you. Feel free to ask us anything that you want.
Melody, is there anything going on in the news world? Melody is from Southwest Voices, which I think is what is the website for that?
Southwestvoices.news.
It's a .news. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what are you covering lately?
So I would say my top stories that I've been covering this week, in no particular order, is the medians on 25th and 27th being finished up on the Lindale Avenue South. I talked with a worker yesterday, and John, I'm actually curious if you were out there taking pictures, because a worker came up to me and said, "Why are so many people? You're the third person that's come out here to take pictures." And I'm like, "Well, I'm with Southwest Voices," and they were like, "So people are just like interested in this?" And I was like, "You have like, thank you, like yes, people are very interested." I'm guessing it was other local news sources. But then I was like, when is everything going to be done? And they said by the end of this week, both intersections should be up and running, including the pressing of the light. I'm so excited about the pedestrian crosswalk with the light.
Yeah, I'm more curious than interested to see if anyone will stop for a flashing yellow light on that avenue. It's like, I mean, if nobody is behind you, I guess you could stop. But I think it's probably safer for drivers not to stop if there's someone behind them. I think I really liked it with the barrels set up where it was reduced to one lane, which is how it will function this summer during the pilot when they go to a 4 to 3 lane conversion. I mean, why couldn't we immediately go to one lane? It worked. For years, in front of the Aldi, when they were building that, they had reduced that to one lane for the construction was delayed for an endless period of time. It was one lane for a long time simply because they were building a building. And they're so desperate to get it back to 2 lanes. I think it will work. It will be fine. And
for the audience that's listening, you might say, well, John's really biased because he doesn't drive a car, right? So I'll just say, as a driver, I've gone down Lindale numerous times during this construction phase, and I love that it went down to one lane because it slowed the traffic down, and the traffic jam that would happen it was fine. It like worked out.
It would clear up in like 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. But I could already tell John, this is like a hopeful thing, that I have never seen so many pedestrians crossing across Lindale, and I could tell that they felt safe, that they knew that they could cross. Like, I really hope that it changes the tenor of Lindale. And I just want to say to all the haters that are definitely not listening to this podcast, but like the drivers that get upset about it, my instant reaction is like, if the drivers are the reason we had to do this. Like if people didn't drive so shitty and so carelessly, and if we didn't prioritize ourselves as drivers instead of pedestrians and bicyclists, like it's like the drivers, it's our fault. It's our behavior's fault. So get mad all you want, but it's on us.
If you give a driver a super wide street to drive on, people will. A couple of people start driving fast. It feels like you need to be driving fast, and reckless driving becomes like a necessity in this game of survival on our streets.
We'll be right back after these messages.
So you will, if we can't get Taylor on the line, you will play the role of Debbie in sales and perhaps respond to my reading of the ad. That's how that will. Did you see Taylor's version of the
I have.
ad recording?
Yeah.
Wedge Live is sponsored by Dispatch. sending you reports from the bustling Minneapolis and St. Paul arts and culture scene. For May, Dispatch welcomes us all back to Filmtown, with a profile on the return of the MSP Film Society in their new home at St. Anthony, Maine. Plus, there's the return of the Red Eye Theater, comedian Maggie Ferris's new album, the Caterwaul Music Festival, and much more. Check it out at dispatchmsp.com. That's dispatchmsp.com. How'd that go?
It was all right.
I wonder if I accept a call from Conrad, if that will knock Melody off. I'm going to try it. Melody, if you get knocked off, feel free to call in again. I'm going to accept this call from Conrad.
Hey, it's
Okay,
just
now we
like
have-
a regular
now-
video call. We can have as many people as we want.
Conrad, if this was a public hearing, I would tell you that only people who haven't spoken can call in. You have already spoken. What could possibly be so important that you would need to call in a second time?
Well, we were just on the Our Streets City of Minneapolis MnDOT extravaganza tonight with dozens of people and people from the Neighborhood Association. So it's wonderful to see a neighborhood association supporting, projects that support people who are biking, rolling, walking, whatever, and also bring back vitality to the neighborhood. And it was so I encourage you all to, and you can put a link to this somewhere eventually, but on their advocacy page that Our Streets has, they're working with graduate students from the University of Minnesota on the history of 6th Avenue North. So, you know how we have 1st Avenue, 2nd Avenue, 3rd Avenue? Well, there used to be a 6th Avenue. What? There's a 6th Avenue? So, yeah, so it was a regular old 6th Avenue, and it had a thriving entertainment district that was both Jewish and black owned, which, of course, did not make the Protestant white people very happy. And so they bulldozed it and put in a highway, just like many other times in history. And, it's actually kind of funny because they had a newspaper clipping. I don't know what the date of the clipping was because the date is not on the clipping per se, but it's something I can look up later. And it's talking about the moral squad of the Minneapolis PD. So the Minneapolis police had a moral squad for things like prohibition and prostitution and all their other kind of things that they want to be like they are moral creatures, and this is their morality here. And so I have a personal family history that my great-grandfather was busted by the moral squad back in 1933, right before Prohibition ended. And so we have our history in the Star Tribune or the Minneapolis Star at that time, and so it's just kind of like, yeah, this has been happening for literally hundreds of years, and it's great that we can make street improvements and hopefully to the greater conversation about things. And so that was just kind of what I want to share from our meeting tonight. But yeah, so I'm excited for Lindale or I think it was Lindale you were talking about, right?
Yes. And somebody in the chat is asking what neighborhood organization was there.
Somebody put their name in the question box. The name on this question is the question.
Shut up, that's
and
me, you guys. Look at my thing. I'm not Melody anymore. I'm Conrad. What neighborhood org was there? I have no idea how I did that. I put it in the chat. It's a major glitch.
Yeah. This is a common old person problem where they will put their question in the to box.
The neighborhood association was Harrison, I believe.
Great neighborhood organization, by the way.
I wish I knew how to hang up on our callers because we're accumulating them at such a rate and I can't get rid of them. How do I hang up on a caller?
I think they have to leave the call themselves.
Wait, so many people are...
That seems dangerous.
Okay.
If I accept, you're stuck with them?
I'm going to leave so you can have more people in here, right? Because people are calling now.
Well, I think we're not at our limit. Nobody's calling. I just want to get rid of some people, and I don't know how.
That's why I'm confused by what you're saying.
He wants to know that he has the power to do it.
I think it's important in case somebody refused to leave. Like, I am in a vulnerable position here. If I accepted a call and was unable to get out of it, what would I do? I don't see any way of doing this.
For the next time, I'll have to try to log in as a producer or something and see if I have.
Yeah, you should be able to kick people out. There's no way that... Well, you keep hosting the show, and I'll do some Googling.
Okay. Thank you, Melody. And Conrad, you hang up.
Sucker.
Wow.
Damn.
Thank you, Conrad, for respecting my authority, because you could have just...
The smallest amount of power that has ever gone to someone's head.
You didn't have to do it.
You can have up to 7 guests, but it says nothing about how to kick people out. It might be like Zoom or Skype, where you can't.
It's the Riverside call-in function. So if you want to narrow your Googling.
I know. Did you just tell a PhD like how to Google something?
No, I just gave you the term that you would use.
Okay.
Because we call that John-splaining on the pod.
Thank you.
We do.
Thank you, John.
So Hennepin Avenue is coming for a vote, I think, this month. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Not confirmed, but... So, Public Works and Infrastructure Committee will have a public hearing. People can testify. And the thing that's at stake is the 24/7 bus lane. So if you want to support transit riders on this transit-rich, population-dense, transit-reliant corridor here in the Wedge, you should testify at the public hearing. It's very important. They want to take away the staff recommendation for a 24/7 bus lane. That's what I'm hearing. Of course they would do that.
Yeah, it would definitely not surprise me to hear that that would be the new director of public works strategy, to try to just kick the can further down the road on this.
So we've had this was supposed to come up for a vote, the design of the street last year. So we're like a year delay so far, just based on like internal council politics and the fact that Lisa Goodman gets her way on stuff. And so now we've had this staff recommendation. The two options both had a 24/7 bus lane. Now we got a staff recommendation that says, 24/7 bus lane. And we've had it for months, and like we're waiting for how much time now to find out, and they're going to pull something at the last minute to say, oh, actually, no, Public Works has decided, now that Lisa Goodman's best friend is Public Works Director, that the professional Public Works staff and traffic engineers, we're just going to disregard what they have recommended based on, I should say, many years of adopted city transportation and climate policies. This is what we're supposed to be doing. Staff didn't come up with this out of nowhere. And if we want to change the way the policies work, change the policies, but don't disregard them, because it cheapens what I think is a really good transportation action plan. Let's follow our policies, please.
Yeah, the fact that we have the transportation action plan makes it seems like, even this has nothing to do with how I personally feel about it or any of the arguments, but like, because we have that transportation action plan, this is how roads are going to be developed now, like with the 24/7 bus lane. And like, so if people have issues with those kind of amenities, if you will, or, facets of a redesign, that anger is delayed and should have been like dealt with. That sounds strange to say, but you know what I mean, with the transportation action plan. It's too late now, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, even if I was like pro parking, I'd have to look at the policy and be like, man, that sucks, because like the policy says right there, they're going to deprioritize,
And it is somewhat dependent on what kind of street it is. Hennepin Avenue it's going to get bus rapid transit. During peak times, half of the people in vehicles on Hennepin are people on buses. And so if we're going to follow the policy anywhere in the city and see if it can work, we should follow it on Hennepin Avenue, because there's a lot of people. I moved to the Wedge because I could ride the bus places, planning to be transit dependent. And so a lot of people here like me. I realize a lot of people still drive, and a lot of people who drive support this 4-3 conversion. There's a lot of stuff in the plan, in other words, that can benefit everyone who lives and travels on the street. And I don't see how you could live in a neighborhood to either side of Hennepin Avenue and think this is a bad idea. Because Hennepin is a disaster. Maybe not as bad as Lyndale, but it's not a good street.
Yeah, I think it's bad in different ways than Lyndale. I mean, certainly there are some commonalities in terms of people driving too fast, people weaving in and out of lanes and things like that. But I think in terms of Hennepin, what makes it so difficult for people to navigate, especially as pedestrians and bikers, is the angle of Hennepin creates some extra long blocks without crossing spaces and things like that. So then when you are at an intersection, it's even more important that it be safe for you to cross there. And because of that angle, some of those intersections are wider. People who are turning, right on red or things like that may not see you. They're, paying attention to a much broader area around them. And then when you get to the transit concept, people have been complaining about how uptown businesses aren't being supported. And rather than aligning with, some climate goals, some economic goals and things like that, of falling into allowing transit to better serve those areas and bring people in that way, they're sort of panicking and doubling down on the need for a handful of parking spots at best. And it seems like it's very self-defeating in terms of a long-term strategy, especially when you look at studies that say, how much less frequently Gen Z is getting driver's licenses, even as, not even looking at how rarely they're buying vehicles and things like that, but how they tend to look at cars as more of a service than a possession. It's going to be a big shift, and now would be the time for people to get on board with that and plan and do things strategically to prepare for a different future, rather than fighting so hard to stay in the past.
So I think the plan is preserving, there's like 300 parking spots on Hennepin currently, street parking, and I think they're going to add like 40 parking stalls behind the bus lane up and down the corridor. And Melody, I talked about it with Melody a couple of weeks ago about maybe many of those should be handicapped or like food delivery drop-off zones, because that seems to be what people use as the reason why we can't do this. And so if we set aside those spaces that we're keeping and preserving in terms of parking and make sure those uses are accounted for, then okay, all you able-bodied drivers, park at the intersection, park one street over. It's not that big a sacrifice. It's going to be a short walk. The thing that gets to me is whenever I get into a car, which is rarely, somebody offers me a ride. It's amazing how convenient it is to get anywhere in the region, like tens of miles away in a matter of minutes. It's amazing. I don't want to be an advocate for cars, but cars are amazing, and getting around by car is so easy. And when you think about it for more than 2 minutes, it's kind of amazing. We have a hard time sacrificing a little bit of that convenience for people who drive and drive everywhere for the sake of people who take transit.
Yeah.
Cars are freedom. Freedom is cars.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave.
Okay, Melody, I know you have to go. Thank you for calling in.
I think people are waiting, people want to call in, but it's like, I don't want to interrupt.
Nobody.
And so if I leave.
Nobody's calling in.
They said in the chat, happy to call in anytime, 10-4, happy to call in anytime.
That's probably Conrad, right? Conrad, are you happy to call in anytime?
No, I think
Is that
Conrad
you?
has a name, Conrad. Because
Yeah.
Conrad earlier said, you know what, I'm not going to do your job for you.
Happy to call in anytime is Conrad. Conrad, we've heard from you twice. Why would we hear from you a third time? Conrad, we'll have to leave you for the end of the show if no one else calls in. But or type your concerns in the chat. We may accept it if we think it's relevant to our interests. So did you see the picture I tweeted of the bald eagle dropped a dead fish on Lake of the Isles Parkway?
Yes. I had people contacting me asking where they could find that location.
So I was trying to think why that seemed familiar. Why did that? I had a little bit of deja vu, and so a bald eagle dropping a dead fish on Lake of the Isles Parkway, and then it dawned on me. Cam Gordon tweeted about Mayor Fry and his appointment of Tom Hoke to be board chair of MPHA. It was like, that's the perfect metaphor for the return of Tom Hoke, is a bald eagle dropping a dead fish on Lake of the Isles Parkway. What do you think, Jason?
Well, certainly Tom Hoke lives near Lake of the Isles Parkway. I think that it is a very apt metaphor, making Tom Hoke your dead fish of the recent news. And one thing,
does that make Jacob Fry the bald eagle?
It does, and here's why I think that that's so apt. Is people tend to think of bald eagles primarily as like these noble hunting predators, but in actuality they're often just as much a scavenger as anything. They're happy to pick at a dead corpse that something else has left laying. Much like Jacob Fry did in his initial mayoral campaign, picking at the issue of MPD that he used to throw Betsy Hodges under the bus.
Is this just a function of your anti-American views, that you hate the bald eagle?
Well, Ben Franklin actually wanted the wild turkey to be the national symbol, not the bald eagle, because he found bald eagles to be loathsome, but found wild turkeys to be very cunning and elusive and more of a intelligent creature than the bald eagle.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
A little wildlife segment.
Maybe you should learn some of your own American history.
I think it would have been a mistake to make the national bird a turkey, though.
I mean,
they are hilarious. I think turkeys are hilarious.
Well, they're coming back. So
you know what else is coming back, Jason? Board and commission meetings in person only, no live stream. City clerk has said we don't have the resources to do this. I'm a little sympathetic to that because, it is work, and not all the meetings happen in the council chambers with cameras. Some of them are just happening in random rooms at City Hall. It wouldn't be easy for like dozens of board and commission meetings to like set up a stream. And so I'm sympathetic, but it would be simple to simply drop a voice recorder on the table and upload the audio to YouTube. That's something you can do.
Yeah.
I would recommend it. And we need to live stream the Charter Commission. If nothing else, live stream the Charter Commission. They have shown that they have surprising and outsized power for the fact that they are just basically a neighborhood association style group that has been elevated to having the power to put things on the ballot that can destroy our lives. So let's keep live streaming that. And people, please keep applying to the Charter Commission. We have some openings now. I think there are 3 openings right now. Keep applying.
Yeah, and I think, since that is a commission that is required by state law, maybe there's some funding that they could get to make sure that those are live streamed or at least recorded and uploaded.
CD5 convention is coming up, Jason, this weekend. I'm a delegate.
You are.
I don't know if Don Samuels will show up or not. I don't think so, but who knows?
I mean, he could show up and demand to be heard again.
And so what do we think the top issues are going to be? I can see maybe public safety and police, because Don Samuels is kind of famously involved in those issues last year. Possibly Ukraine. I think Ilhan is... I don't pay a ton of attention to Congress, but I think Ilhan has voted against some military aid to Ukraine. I could see Don Samuels bringing that up as why she is unfit, because Ukraine is becoming a huge deal. There are a lot of yard signs about standing with Ukraine, and people could be swayed by the Ukraine issue.
Yeah, I was wondering with the leak of the Supreme Court decision, if that may be something that gets brought up now. The concept.
What are Don Samuel's positions on abortion? Does he have any?
I doubt it. I don't think he's ever been pressed on it. But I think that, as there is a push to ensconce the right to an abortion in federal law, any federal elected office, like it within the House of Representatives or Senate, I think that will now become a topic of discussion. That we will be at least hearing people talk about, especially with the CD5 convention this weekend, since it's so new. At least I would hope that people are asking anyone who's planning on seeking that nomination and running for Congress, what are your plans to make sure that the right to legal abortion is protected?
Well, come see me at the convention. I'm going to be a delegate.
It appears that Conrad is an alternate.
I don't talk to alternates.
Oh, right.
So, Conrad, don't come see me at the convention. Let's give a shout out to Conrad for being the cinematographer on my recent smash hit YouTube video, The Sights and Sounds of Lake Chipotle, a slow TV experience. Conrad, people love that. So thank you, Conrad, for bringing my vision to reality. So Jason,
yeah,
you've been a lifetime. Oh, we have Conrad. Is this you or you C? I'm going to accept it.
Well, I thought that you were trying to give me a cue.
Conrad, we were about to go into a different topic. No more calls. Sit there quietly. Mute yourself. You can sit there on video, but no more calls, Conrad.
You mentioned me. I thought you were trying to do a cue that I should come on.
No, that was not a cue. That was simply thanks. It was a nice gesture, and you ruined it.
I think it's appropriate to have Conrad on camera to accept the plaudits that you were
okay. Conrad, keep it brief. Do you accept my thanks, my heartfelt thanks?
I do accept it, and it was wonderful to spend time, and we even had a little bit of Aldi straight from Germany, German chocolate.
We did. We were sitting in Conrad's car eating Aldi chocolate. It was great. Although we had to call it after 24 minutes. It's not actually a 72-minute video. It's like a 24-minute video because it started raining, and we didn't want to ruin Conrad's very high-tech and fancy equipment. So thank you, Conrad. Please mute yourself. We're going on to the next topic.
Happy to talk more if you want me.
Okay. So, Jason, big news in your life. You've received a lifetime ban from Twitter. How is that going?
As the second co-host of the Wedge Live podcast who has received a lifetime ban, I'm doing all right. I am hanging in there. I am still working on the appeals process, even though it was initially rejected. So I'm seeing what else can be done there. But aside from that, with many of the things that have been going on, it's been nice to have to not have the burden of a Twitter account where many people could reach out to me and sort of troll me with issues, or even just people looking for a ray of hope or whatever. I am on Instagram and have had conversations there with people as well.
You could go to TikTok. I hear anything goes on TikTok. You could do whatever.
I think we've been over this, that I do not have a face for TikTok. But we are planning, or I am working on planning a Minneapolis leftist picnic / barbecue that's coming up in a couple weeks. On May 21st at Mueller Park. from 12 till 4. So, if you identify as a leftist in Minneapolis, consider yourself invited. It's open to pretty much anyone. The one stipulation that we have is, if, you have a friend or you're a person who has had some issues with violence or intimate relationship abuse or things like that, even if you're, working through something with somebody as far as restorative justice plans and things like that, we do ask that in order to keep it a safe space that people in that category not attend. I've been trying to move some of my leftist Twitter tendencies into a more physical realm to try to build some solidarity along with the local bike community.
So Twitter is in the process of being purchased by Elon Musk. Do I have that correct?
Theoretically,
Jason?
yes.
This is a huge risk for Wedge Live, which is almost entirely based on Twitter. So if it turns into a right-wing hellhole of harassment and if people on the left decide they're going to boycott Twitter, I'm out of luck. I have put all my eggs in the Twitter basket. It feels very dangerous to me in this moment.
Well,
Kristen is calling in. I'm going to accept Kristen's call.
All right.
Caller, you're on the air. Give us your name and where you're calling from.
Hi, I'm Kristen, and I'm calling from Powderhorn.
Welcome to the show, Kristen. Did you come up with anything to say?
No, Jason told me that they were going to ask me stuff.
Yeah, I can ask Kristen some questions. We can, we can flip it around and have an Ask Kristen Anything segment.
I mean, sure,
Okay.
I can ask you, Jason, how I've listened to you talk about, leaving Twitter and how that's been. How's the planning going without the Jason Comics account?
It's been a little more challenging, but fortunately there are some people, who have been helping out. We'll probably be doing a little bit more next week in terms of communication and, getting a link out for people to donate if they want to, help fund some of the food and things like that, for my big run to Costco and things. I was going to ask Kristen, given the giant bombshell that came out yesterday, regarding the Supreme Court, how have you been processing that, and what are some of the resources that you've seen floating around that you think are helpful for people to know about?
Oh, absolutely. As much as I anticipated that this day was coming, that doesn't make it hurt less, right? I think for me, it has been challenging because of the robbery of bodily autonomy and agency from people who can have children. And, I come to this looking at it from more than one perspective. I became a parent very young when I was 18 and chose to parent. And I experienced what the barriers are like for young single parents and what the barriers are that we navigate both within our own family conditions as well as society conditions. And now that choice has been removed, I think about it and it's really, really challenging because for me, it brings up feelings of, having choice taken away. And I'm a survivor of sexual violence and domestic violence. And so to me, that autonomy and that agency is something that I truly cherish. And having that be taken by the Supreme Court feels just, it feels like yet another example of, not being respected and not having, choices within our own bodies. So that is really challenging. And for me, I've been looking at resources like Gender Justice and Unrestrict Minnesota, I think the big thing is absolutely in terms of mutual aid, donating to abortion funds, helping people get to places where it's safe for them to get services, showing up in your community and being present. I think that's really some of the biggest things we can do, and the most critical work that we can do is continue to be organized on a community level and take good care of one another like we've been doing.
Thank you. I will also throw out a plug for Our Justice, which is an abortion fund based in Minnesota here. Their website is ourjustice.net. Feel free to head over there and make a donation. But yeah, there's been a lot of things that I think I have been missing being able to engage with in the Twitter sphere, but it's also been somewhat helpful to have some distance with things like this. I've been a volunteer with Planned Parenthood going back to 2015. I have done things such as being a clinic escort. I've been a community ambassador. I've even, just made phone calls thanking people for donations and things like that. And, the interactions with patients at Planned Parenthood are ultimately, that's what, every volunteer is there for. It's easy to fall into a trap of thinking it's like us against protesters or us against these politicians and things like that. But really the way that it keeps you going in that sort of work is to say, no, this is me with these patients. This is me being in community with people who are here seeking medical care. And I think that's one thing that I really appreciate about your framing constantly, Kristen, is how you are always looking for ways to, work within community instead of it being a competition or a challenge with other people. It's really about how can we generate better outcomes for people and continue to find ways to help people. So I really appreciate that.
Oh, that's nice of you to say.
This is one of those national stories that can really make you depressed. It make you feel hopeless. Like, what power do we have over the Supreme Court, we've got a conservative majority on this court for many decades to come, and things can feel hopeless. I told Jason suggested that we do an episode on this, and I think we will do this, and I was thinking like, a national story, it's really bad, but like, what value do I have as somebody who talks about local issues primarily? Like, I'm not doing episodes on the war in Ukraine, for example. It's like, what value do I have? And Jason, tell me how you scolded me when I asked that question. What value do I bring to even talking about this story?
I don't think that I scolded you. I wanted to kind of talk you up and say, this is a very scary time for people who can become parents. This is a scary time for, people of all genders who can carry a baby to term or who can make the decision to abort. And, what you have done, John, is you've been very good at building a platform and, speaking to a broad range of listeners. And by using that platform to, talk to people about their experiences with abortion, certainly people right here in our city and in our neighborhood have had abortions or need abortion care or, need any form of reproductive care that are all in danger of losing that. Fortunately in Minnesota, we don't have a trigger law or anything like that, but it is still going to be an issue that will be in front of people for a long time. And just by giving a platform to people to discuss these things and also bringing up some of the relevant political aspects, like, the people that we elect to Congress and the Senate are going to be in places of power to try to push this into protected law instead of relying on an overturned Supreme Court case to protect those rights for people. So I think that while some of these things are national issues, it is also a case where these are things that impact people right down to our city, our neighborhood, our block, our building. And just letting people know that we're a resource and that we're happy to help out in any way we can is a big action. Instead of just saying, well, it doesn't impact me, so I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah, Minneapolis can feel like an island unto itself. Like, we have a Planned Parenthood, a shiny new multi-story Planned Parenthood right in the Wedge, which can like skew your perspective, because that's an uncommon resource to have in a neighborhood. A lot of people, even today, like, it's not easy to access abortion many places in this country. Like, there's so many hurdles put up by state legislatures. It's like de facto illegal in a lot of places if you don't have access to like being able to travel long distances where it's accessible.
Well, and even here we have barriers. There are barriers in Minnesota.
Talk about some of the barriers in Minnesota.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, and Jason can probably speak to this too, but I know that if you are underage, you need parental consent to get an abortion, and that includes if you were the victim of incest. And that parent would be the person who has to sign off. And if you're unable to get a hold of your parents and the courts can't reach your parents, then a judge gets to decide whether or not you're mature enough to choose an abortion, which is a little ridiculous because you're carrying a child. In addition, there is data collection that happens. So there's a listing of like each county and each city and state, like demographics of who's gotten. It doesn't list specific names, but it lists the demographics of who's getting abortions in our states. On top of that, it's a requirement if you go to the doctor and you're considering this service that you have to the doctor has to read with you some language that isn't even factually correct. And there's constant work being done at the legislature in Minnesota to try and take away from the rights that we do have. And I cannot remember, Jason, maybe correct me if you know the answer, but I think there's something like 5 clinics in the state where a person can go and get abortion services, if I'm correct. That might be wrong, but there's a lot more clinics that appear, they show up to be a health clinic, but their true purpose is to stop people from getting abortions. And there are even cases where they'll give false information to the potential parent about how far along they are and so forth.
Yeah.
Even up to the current moment, it feels like, well, a switch has been flipped and we're going from freely available to potentially not available at all in a lot of states. Like, it's been very difficult even up to this point. Like, this is not something that just happened. It's been a long road towards making it impossible to access these. It
does interface with the other things we're dealing with in our city in terms of policing and so forth, because a lot of what's happening in other states is it's criminalizing reproductive health care. And so in that way, we will see that impact with policing and carceral systems. And that's something for us to be cognizant of in Minnesota, and even just here in Minneapolis in our neighborhoods, is how is that going to show up, that extra apparatus of oversight and data and information that people are looking at, and the way that people who get periods can track their periods in an app, and that data can be sold, and like how does that impact with policing and so forth. And so there are implications that we absolutely, I think, do want to be conscious of as a community, regardless of how safe we may think we are. In Minneapolis, we've talked about how we're this bastion of liberal politics, and look at what the conditions are that we're dealing with as a result. So I think it's wise to keep your eyes open, for sure.
Absolutely. And, another thing that we talk about on the Wedge Live podcast a lot is, housing justice and affordable housing and things like that. And, while it's certainly not realistic for the majority of people who live in states where their bodily autonomy is being targeted through the legal system, there are certainly people, like myself, who have moved to the Twin Cities because we think of it as being someplace that is more open and accepting. And if Minneapolis continues to become less affordable and less livable because of rising rents or rising housing costs, rising transportation costs, that makes it even more difficult for people who may have the opportunity to leave those areas to come here and try to partake in, a little bit better system than what they have where they would be coming from.
Yeah, and I think also maternal health is another aspect to keep in mind here too. I think last week or the week prior, there was a lot of conversation going on around Black mothers and the disparities in our healthcare system as well. So another aspect to consider with this too is the fact that the healthcare system doesn't treat everybody the same. And so there's a lot of ways that this can impact different people, especially folks who are, identities at different intersections that already experience oppression. So, there's plenty of ways that it becomes very important locally, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling in, Kristen.
Thank
I
you.
think I figured out how to hang up on people, and I'm going to test it on you. Do you feel honored that I'm going to hang up on you? I'm going to hang up on you first. You're our first hang up.
Awesome.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks.
Okay,
you
I
did
it. I should hang up on Conrad for the hell of it. Conrad's still on the line. Conrad, turn your camera back off. We're heading into our last topic. Conrad, we may let you in for the final word, but only if you behave. So, did you hear about the mayor's failed attempt to embed the Chamber of Commerce in his office? Did you hear about that, Jason?
I did.
That was kind of funny.
I saw that, he attempted to get an in-kind donation of organizational staff or people consulting on organizational.
Basically some consultant to tell him how to run his office because he doesn't know how. And I don't want to blow it out of proportion and act like this is the most corrupt deal in the history of the world, but I think it is illustrative that the mayor's team doesn't know how to run a meeting.
Yes.
Because if you look at the memo that the mayor sent to the city council, and I think it's good that the mayor sent a memo finally explaining what this was all about, because it's very mysterious on an agenda, and you could develop some conspiracy theories about what this meant. And obviously it looks bad to embed the Chamber of Commerce in your office, and it was all about how the mayor's team needs help figuring out how to run a meeting efficiently.
Yeah.
Which I think reflects poorly on the mayor. And Jacob Frey has had a rough time with, I would say, competence. Jason, you and I may disagree with this. I think you hate the mayor with a passion. And I personally don't. I can't work up a hatred for this man. I know a lot of people viscerally react negatively to him, but I'm losing my voice. We're 90 minutes into this.
All right.
So he's a white. I'm winding up for a joke, Jason. Right. Have some sympathy. He's a white man in his 30s who fell in love with Minneapolis when he moved here, and everyone hates him because he's an outsider. I'm also a white man in my 30s who moved to Minneapolis. I'm no longer. I was in my 30s when I moved to Minneapolis. That's what I'm trying to say. Oh. And so the 7 people who are here watching this are all laughing at my joke comparing myself to Jacob Frey. But I feel like there's a lot of visceral aesthetic reasons people hate Jacob Frey, and I don't have those. I just he's done a terrible job. I disagree with him on a lot of policy things, but also the follow through and the implementation of the things he says he's for, I think is a really big problem. If I have to have a mayor I disagree with, I want that mayor to be I still want the mayor to be competent because the job he does affects people. It affects my life if he's bad at his job. I don't wish him ill in trying to do a better job. We wish him the best, right, Jason? We wish Jacob Frey the best.
I am just hopeful for the best possible outcome of his current administration.
You can't say you wish Jacob Frey the best?
The best
in the pursuit of...
That's very simplistic. Do I wish that he has the best dinner of his life tonight? No. Do I wish that he
gets reelected?
I wish him
success.
Do I wish that he gets reelected? Also no.
No.
Like,
No.
but
I mean, like carrying out his job, I hope it happens in a very competent way. And if that means like Jacob Frye gets a nice story written about him because he did a good thing and things turned out okay, I would be happy with that. Like,
I mean,
if Jacob Frye gets reelected in 25, if he runs, because things are just great in Minneapolis again, like, let's face it, he'll probably get reelected even when things are terrible. But I don't know. I don't know why consequences don't befall this man.
Yeah,
for being a bad mayor.
White man fails up is so rare in our society, isn't it? There is value to him in learning how to be a better executive of the city. I think that there is value certainly for anybody who is conducting a meeting to know how to do it efficiently and effectively. But I don't know that necessarily has to come from an organization that has very defined political goals, like the Chamber of Commerce. And I think that's
who else would help him?
I bet he could.
Of course, the Chamber of Commerce would be the ones. Like, that's
well, of course they're the ones who are trying to get into his office. Yeah, even who are trying to embed themselves more in his office. But if he was sincere about saying, I've taken a look at the way that my office functions, and these are some things that we could improve and do better, there are any number of resources that he could employ to make those changes, or to hire out to work with to try to improve those things. Like, I bet if he were to reach out to someone at the Coven, which is an organization based here in South Minneapolis as well as in St. Paul, I bet that they would have a number of people who would say, you know what, yes, we can help you in running more efficient meetings, in being a better manager of people, in being able to more effectively plan your day, so that you don't have things happening where, your chief of police, who reports directly to you, is leaving disciplinary action sitting on their desk for 4 months at a time while they're out doing TV publicity for you. Those are things that I think any number of people could be helping him with.
Yeah. We're 5 years into the Jacob Frye administration, and he doesn't have anyone doesn't have a chief of staff who can run a meeting for him.
And now he's saying that because of this change of the charter to make him the strong mayor, that now he needs extra help as well and more resources.
Yeah, it's one of the great riddles of our time is the mayor acquired control of all the city's departments as a strong mayor, and somehow he needs more staff, and like the city council needs more staff to compensate for the fact that they've had their legislative and oversight capabilities reduced by the fact that the mayor grabbed a bunch of staff from city departments and now has total control. Like, this is not a move towards greater efficiency. It doesn't seem like, just based on the math there.
No. And I think, like we have pointed out numerous times, Jacob Frye is not a leader of people. He is a public speaker and a politician, but he is not a leader of anybody in the city.
He's like surfing the waves of the TV news. That's how I view him.
Yeah.
He's the TV mayor.
It goes back to that mean tweet about him that we read on the podcast last summer, that Jacob Frye thinks he's the prom king of Minneapolis.
So congratulations to the half dozen people who stuck with us through this whole thing, 90 minutes in.
Yeah.
Losing my voice. Conrad, if you want to come back, we'll let you come back for very, very briefly. What do you have to say as we close out the show?
We can talk about improving streets and bike lanes and things like that, but I think this Dobbs opinion really goes to show that what those elements want to do is attack our human rights.
What's the Dobbs opinion?
The opinion that the Alito opinion.
Oh, why'd you call it the Dobbs opinion?
That's the name of the case.
Jackson.
Oh, wow. You're really deep in the weeds on this stuff, Conrad.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't play one on TV, but I do.
I've consumed a lot of news on this topic. For somebody who mostly follows local news, I have never heard it referred to as the Dobbs opinion, but it's not very important. I'm sorry for... I just think it's important we explain what the Dobbs opinion is.
Yeah, so I guess I can't give a summary of the opinion. I can't give a summary of the case itself.
No, please don't. Please don't. We're at the end of the show. I gave you permission for a very brief appearance at the end. Please don't continue, Conrad.
So I guess what I wanted to say, though, was that in Alito's opinion, he calls out these other cases that legalized interracial marriage or that legalized gay marriage or things like this, and he says these are not textual originalist opinions. And
really? He said that? We're gonna ban interracial marriage? That's next?
Yeah, so that's interesting because there, I guess I don't know how many, but there's at least two people that will be on the Supreme Court eventually here that's their family situation, So he's saying that his fellow Supreme Court justices that they don't have full human rights.
Yeah, I'm very confused. I'm not a legal scholar. I shouldn't be talking about the Supreme Court on this neighborhood-based podcast, but I'm very confused by this whole originalism thing, as if it's not mentioned in the Constitution, somehow those rights don't exist. It's very odd.
There's a protest tonight. There's a protest yesterday. And, of course, there'll be many actions here in the future. But so stay tuned to the Wedge Live podcast for things happening in Minneapolis. But, stay strong and hopefully, people like me can be allies in that.
Yeah, Thank you, Conrad. I'm gonna hang up on you. I'm just gonna test out my talents for hanging up on people. So prepare to be hung up on. Goodbye. Okay, Conrad is gone. I've learned how to hang up on people. That's what we've done. We didn't have many call-ins, but I learned how to hang up on people. We're gonna be better at this next time if there is a next time.
Yeah. One thing, I guess, before we wrap up. Since you brought up the concern of, what's going to happen if people start leaving Twitter or if Twitter changes drastically, how will Wedge Live stay viable? We should mention that Wedge Live has a Patreon.
It's true.
It is patreon.com/wedgelive. So if you're not already a member, go over there and pledge. That you can pledge at next to nothing levels, and
yeah, it's very cheap.
You can support the mission here at Wedge Live, to help keep our neighborhood and city and our listeners and viewers across the globe as informed as possible. And if those resources stay available, there are lots of other things that can, help cushion the blow if Twitter ends up becoming a loss to us all.
Yeah, I've kind of run it as support us with whatever amount you can. I'm not going to put up any special paywalls. I'm generally not giving more benefits to people who give more, which is something I probably shouldn't say, but in full disclosure, support us with whatever level you can. And you're helping to make this accessible to all and helping it to continue.
Yeah.
So thank you for your support, patrons. We couldn't do it without you. We literally could not do this without you.
Yeah.
And come see me at this Congressional District 5 convention. I'm going to be there as a delegate. Introduce yourself. Let's talk in person.
Yeah. Make sure you ask anybody who is running for a congressional seat what their plans are to help codify abortion rights into law.
Yes. This has been the Wedge Live podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards, and I've been joined for this entire episode, 140 minutes, by Jason Garcia. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, John.
This is a real real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now. Right now.